everyone. I hope everybody's doing all right. Today we are here because it's the Virtual Indie Book Fest, the final panel, and it's the self-publishing Good, the Bad, and the Ugly panel with Rilzy Adams and Aaron Virtue. So everybody, round of applause. Claire, Claire Contreras was supposed to be on this panel, but she couldn't make it, unfortunately. So it'll just be the three of us hanging out, talking about good, the bad, and the ugly of going the self-publishing route. And yeah, let's have fun. So please yourselves and tell us a little bit about your late.
You want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Arm Virtues. I am erotic romance and fantasy author. Um, my first two projects, well, the main projects were Greek myth retelling. So the first one is Hades and Persephone. The second one is Aphrodite and Hephaestus. Um, a lot of it is queer, black, and people of color representation. So that's kind of what sets my series apart. I feel like that's where I focus most of my energy. And I'm currently working on the third book for that series, which is Dionysus and Athena, and also a mummy retelling. So I hopefully have that out by Halloween, is what we're shooting for right now.
My turn? Okay. I'm gonna apologize beforehand because it seems as if one of my neighbors has decided it's a really good time to start doing something loud. But my name is Rilzy Adams. I write contemporary black romance and erotica. I live in the Caribbean. I live on the beautiful island of Antigua with my two dogs. I am addicted to sushi, coffee, prosecco, and romance. So I completely adore what I do or what I'm working on. I've been working on the book for 10 months now. It's either going to be the book that makes me or sends me into a long hiatus. It's the follow up to Go Deep, which I released in June of last year, I think. It's called Before We Fall, and it's meant to chronicle the journey of two people falling in love, sorry, when they least expect it.
Exciting, exciting. I have read your books, Rilsey, and I've read one of your books, RM, and they're like really, really good. So go ahead and buy them. The links are down below. And my next question is, what got you interested in writing?
I'll go first again. uh, so
Yeah, sure.
I read a lot as a kid, so it felt kind of like a natural uh, migration to writing. I've been writing all my life, so it was all like song lyrics, poetry. Like it started really small, and eventually turned into like short stories, um, and then I eventually got into like fan fiction and um, was at that stage for a long time. And then last year, when the pandemic hit and I was home, I decided, let me try and finish something full length. And I did that. So now I'm here. But it's basically just been like a lifelong hobby I've had. And I kind of decided to take a chance on this year.
Can I mention that you did that splendidly?
Thank you.
um,
I appreciate it.
so I really birth theory. I started writing because I cannot draw, and basically it. I used to really want to be an artist, but it didn't take very long for my 6-year-old self, I think, to realize that I did not have the talent. I couldn't even draw stick men. I was very good at drawing cats. You know, when you do the circle and the whiskers, but that was about it. And my mom pulled me aside, and because I've been really intent on doing a comic strip, but that was never meant to be. And my mom pulled me aside and she showed me like books that she read. They were mostly like John Grisham and Sidney Sheldon, but they had no photos of them. So she's like, "Look, you can tell a story with just words." And that's what I've been doing since then. I think my very first story was, I wonder if I should be saying this in public, but my very first story was about a group of child assassins. Were really, I think they were between the ages of 7 and 9. I think I have no idea. I have no idea where that came from, but thankfully I have graduated into, I can't say more wholesome stuff because I do write a lot of smut, but things that are better on the heart.
I love that. That's so cool. But also, like, you're technically an artist because you design your own book covers, right?
Oh, no, I do not.
That's art.
I well, the first two I did not. What are the odds I did?
Oh,
But the first two, yeah, Gods of Hunger, I passed that off to somebody else because I did not trust myself to make a uniform or for it to look the same every time. So I have an artist for that.
I use artists for everything. I have a group of people that I go to. In fact, my worst habit is that I keep buying book covers. I see it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so cute. Like, nary a plot, anything. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna grab you. But yeah,
You never know when you might need it. You just never know.
Oh,
and
okay.
I said to myself that I go through the collection that I have. I have like 12 just around me. But every time I say that, someone posts something even cuter, and I'm like, yeah, I need to get that now.
So what drew you specifically to adult romance?
Um, I'll, I'll take this one first this time. I've been reading adult romance since I was a kid, actually. Since the time when I'm not sure why or how I even got my hands on them, but I do distinctly remember that I was reading Harlequin and Mills and Boone. Like I was stealing my older cousin's books. Um, and when I was about maybe 11, I think I finally got my hands on an Eric Jerome Dickey novel, and I read all of it. And then I felt so guilty afterwards, that I was trying to confess to my mother that I'd been reading like all of these books, but she surprisingly had a nice little conversation with me about books versus reality and what should be reality and allowed me to continue. So I've been reading adult romance way before I should have. And so it was, I guess, quite natural that after, because my first genre was epic fantasy. So when I stopped writing the epic fantasy, I transitioned into romance.
I think for me, I just like I love love, so that's the story I wanted to tell. But I didn't want to limit myself to like one genre. So romance is kind of the long hallway with all the doors in it. You can basically write, fantasy romance. You can write paranormal romance. You can write, really anything that you want um, in the genre, and still have that romantic plot. So the main plot being romantic, and then having the subplot be kind of whatever you want it to be. So I really like the freedom that adult romance has given me, on top of having the romance itself still in there, and ensuring the happy ending, and not having to like find a reason to not keep them together, or like leave people on cliffhangers or whatever. Like it just feels like it's one of those things where it's going to happen, and the journey is a lot more interesting than the destination because you know how it's going to get there. I mean, you know it's going to get there, you just don't know how. So it really leaves the door open for you to really write anything. So that I like that.
That's really, really true. It's just the opportunities are endless.
Yes.
But love is that beating core. And in some ways, that makes it one of the most comforting
I love
genres
that.
to read.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm finished. I was saying that that's why for me it's one of the most comforting genres to read.
Yes.
Agreed. Absolutely. So why did you decide to go the self-publishing route?
Um, for me, it was just a matter of like, um, I obviously looked at both routes pretty thoroughly, but at the end of the day, I felt like I had a lot more creative control in self publishing. I felt really confident in my ability to do it. So, was there a learning curve? Absolutely. There's obviously a lot of things you got to figure out on your own, and being a self-published author is obviously like 6 7 jobs every book, so it gets overwhelming, but I feel like it just the payoff is so good because like you can say I did that and literally mean you did the whole thing. So you did the marketing, or you did, I'm the one that got with the designer and got my cover done. um, if you do your own editing, um, you're plotting all that. It's hard. Well, for me specifically, it's hard because I have ADHD, so it's really hard to jump between those roles. So it takes a lot of very careful planning. But again, like the payoff is so good because you're just like, I did that. Like this is my project, and I was able to do it on my own. Um, so I think like the control you get and like the payoff is really what keeps me in the self publishing realm.
For me, it came down to the idea of fixed deadlines. So in my day job is that of a prosecutor, and it's really hectic. It's very hectic. And I promised myself that when I started exploring writing, like I got to the point that I just really wanted my stories out there, that I wouldn't choose a route that could ever mean that I couldn't give my complainants 110%. I didn't want to have deadlines to meet that I could not get out of, so I'd be worried about them when I'm supposed to be prepping for a case. And I didn't want a circumstance where I couldn't just go, I'm sorry about this project, it's going to have to be on hold because I have a big case coming up. And so I thought, well, the only way to do that is to publish on my own. I must say, when I first started, I did not realize that it was going to be like so much. It is a lot, but I think that it is quite rewarding. And I would not have been able, in my opinion, I would not have been able to publish anything at all unless I was self-publishing. Just because I would have been afraid to even try, because I'd be worried that it would get to a point where my main job would be sacrificed, or well, not sacrificed, but I wouldn't be doing for my complainants the duty that I know I owe to them. So that was very important to me.
I love that. And people here are praising you. Self-publishing is no joke. Big respect for others who do it. Takes so much skill and hard work. And also, Natalie said that learning curve is no joke. And I have to remember how to do this a second time. So, what, speaking of the challenges of self publishing, what were some of them that you were not expecting?
You want to go? I never know who's.
The things that we were not expecting
Am I here?
from self publishing.
Did I freeze?
Just a bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Oh, sorry.
If you have something, I'm trying to think of what I didn't expect.
Okay. Um, this is really this is it should have been quite obvious to me. I didn't expect how much marketing entails. Like, I still suck at marketing, mind you. But I didn't realize like how much. I didn't realize how much work it. The writing is the easy part. I didn't
Yes.
think that that would be it. Like, it would not have crossed my mind that the writing would be the easy part. Like everything else was just a lot. You're learning to market. You're learning to find the tools that you need to do proper formatting. The, as Natalie said, the learning curve was really, really hard. And then for me as well, I didn't think much about the time management aspect. So for me, I said, okay, I'm going to self publish because I need to be in charge of my own schedule because that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it. But the thing about being in charge of your own schedule and having deadlines that you are setting, you kind of need to be really disciplined, or else you kind of go in the opposite direction where you don't get anything done. And so, because I know that I'm setting my own deadlines and I'm trying to be very disciplined about that, I very often work myself into a state of, am I doing enough? I'm not doing enough. You should be doing more. And that never stops. But yeah, the learning curve was something I did not expect. I thought, write this book, love, and that's it. But no, you write this book and then everything begins.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The writing part is the easiest part, and I did not expect that to be the truth of it. And then yeah, like you doing your own marketing and having to like fluctuate between what avenues are doing well. So like you can do your stuff on Twitter, you can do it on Instagram, but you might not reach the readers that you want to on one platform. So you kind of have to keep it even, and that's kind of difficult because they are two very different platforms. So you kind of have to manage your focus on each of them. In addition to that, it's just like sometimes things are gonna get held up. There's gonna be an issue or something that you have to deal with last minute, and you're like like especially working like with Amazon or KDP, trying to upload something and it doesn't go through when you think it's gonna go through, or um, it's just a lot of like having you're basically like you're your own team, so you have to do all these jobs and handle all these issues as they come because nobody else is going to pick it up, right? So it's just I didn't expect how many hats I would have to wear for one book, like just for one project, and then to do that and take off the hat again and write another book and then go through the whole thing again, and it still feels like you have to learn that process again because it's never exactly the same. And if you get into the habit of thinking it's the same, you might miss something the next time. So it's like, well, I did 5 steps for this book, I'll do the same 5 steps for the next book, but guess what, the next book needs 7 steps or 8 steps. So it's like you have to adjust to each project, but also kind of set yourself up in a way where you can do all of that in a timely manner. And like, yeah, I don't have great time management skills, so giving myself deadlines never works. So I kind of just have to be like, hey, it's okay, let's just get it done, and then we can see where we go from there. So I'm done.
Ashley
Naturally,
says, I didn't know there was no order for paperbacks, and that once you put your paperback as live, it's actually live. Ask me how I
Probably the
found
same way as
out.
me, which
So,
was
yeah, there's.
I hit it thinking it was going to go to pre-order, and then it was for sale, so I had to take it down really quick. That was my first one.
I actually spent a good year and a half being afraid of paperbacks. Everyone would go out. are you ever going to offer paperbacks? And I kept going, maybe in the future, but deep down inside, I was thinking, really sure. It turned out to not be the monster that I thought it would have been, but yeah, a good year and a half, like running scared.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it sounds super nerve-wracking, but you also mentioned that there's a lot of good things, like the what you get back is very valuable. So what are the highlights of taking the self-publishing route?
What was that?
I think she said, "What are the highlights of taking the self-publishing route?" What?
So,
What are the highlights?
one more time. That's what she said, right? The highlight.
What are the highlights
Okay.
of the, yeah.
So, I would say it's still like the creative control. You basically get to, you know, within, good faith, right? Whatever you want. You really get to, I mean, I feel like for me, the best part about it is like the community you make within self publishing, and being able to like personally reach out to readers, meet readers, interact with them. It doesn't feel like you're separated from your reader base. Um, like, traditional published authors, they always kind of feel like this far away entity that we really can't touch or interact with. Um, but with us, like, we have to be present, like we have to be our own marketing team, we have to be active on social media, we have to, market our own books and be marketable. So we have to, we're promoting ourselves as much as our work. So I feel like it's a lot more of an intimate experience as far as readership goes. um, and yeah, probably that, and just like being able to decide like what you're going to write, when you're going to write it, and having that freedom to basically do whatever you want.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree that creative control is a huge plus, and also because you can get to the stage where you hire persons to do the things for each step of the process, and that means you can work with one or two editors, which means you can publish books as fast as you can write them, because it is the publishing wheel really sometimes does take a while to turn. So the creative control and the whole point that you can write as quickly or as slowly as you want, and you can really build a career that's suited to you. You can make the decision. Like, for example, I adore writing novellas because I adore reading novellas. I like reading books in one sitting if I can, and it was great to think that, well, yes, you can do that if you want, and then you can also change your mind, um, because of the control that you have. And the community is amazing. The readers and the other writers. It's a really nice, motivating community to be a part of. So that's also very good. I think,
I mean, I hope she comes back.
oh, here
Uh,
she is. I was going to. Oh,
so
well, how do you go about setting your schedule when you're writing?
every schedule I've set does not end up the way it looks. Like, I'll go to Google Calendar and be like, okay, for these 2 weeks I'm working on this project, and then work on this project, and this weekend I'll write the short for Patreon, and then do this, and it never works out that way. But I think my primary, like the general schedule I set is kind of, so I do 1 month of drafting, so like just full writing. The next month is editing, so go back and edit. That way, whatever I just wrote, I can put it on the shelf for later. Edit whatever I wrote before that, and kind of just, you know, alternate so that I don't get burnt out on editing, but I also don't get burnt out on writing. So
Exactly.
alternating, it kind of makes it easier. But it's like sometimes, on the fly, I'll have to change things, and then like having to, going to school on top of that, it's like I have to kind of every day get up and be like, okay, what are you going to get done? And sometimes I'll just like get so overwhelmed that I won't do anything, but I'll just go play video games because I'm like,
Say that.
yeah,
What I always have like this super optimistic schedule. So I'd be like, okay, so you're gonna do this amount of writing before work, and this amount of writing after work, and you're gonna get this amount of words done, so you'll finish this in X amount of time. And then I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna just play The Sims for a while. A lot. So what I've been doing recently is saying to myself, okay, you need to clock in X amount of hours per week. But if you get up to 80% of that, you'll be fine. If you wake up one day and you're thinking, maybe I don't need to be working on this book right now, you can go ahead and read or something like that. I saw someone tweet something the other day who said, and it was kind of like, being a mood reader is great. So, like, being a mood reader and then the great, that's
yeah,
one thing, like being a mood writer.
exactly.
I relate to that so much. So
And I
yeah,
just like some days is 10, some days I can do, 5, 7K. Other days I can do 500 and be like, this is what you're getting out of me. I don't know what else to tell you.
and
So,
sometimes the important part is to realize that both of those days are a win.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
like when you give yourself grace and you don't get to that point where you're just frozen for. I remember I had to take a hiatus earlier on this year. Is it this year? All my years are running together since 2020. My
Hmm.
last year was 2019, and then it's chaos going forward. But I think earlier this year I took a hiatus because I was stressing myself so much out with writing and work that I just wasn't producing anything at all, and so I just needed to like take a step back before both aspects of my life crashed. So apparently, in this season of my life, we're learning to give myself some grace. No,
Sorry about the hassle. Um,
that's not
I'm just highlighting some comments here. Uh, Gaming is a good brain cooler, though.
it really is.
Yeah. And yeah, authors are all witches juggling all the things to get us these stories. Yeah, it's a magic act how self-publishing authors do it all. It's mind-blowing, over the top time management skills. Even though, yeah, as you both have said, it's a learning curve. So does anybody have questions for Rilzy or RM? Uh, Let us know in the comments. So that Oh my God! Stop, Natalie! Stop! Enough! This is like too much. Time is not real. Uh, so okay, I will be waiting a little bit for I think I'm cutting off. Am I okay?
You're kind of going in and
Yeah,
out.
cutting in and out.
Oh, Okay.
We have Wit. I think Wit said that it was the learning curve and how you were wearing so many hats and how the writing was actually the easiest part, which was a plot twist I didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what is something that you wish that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started writing or considering self-publishing?
Again, just like the amount of work I would have to do myself, and but also at the same time, like I think one of the most important things which Rilzy kind of pointed out was like you have to be able, like just the same way that you have to push yourself to get these things done or like to impose these deadlines on yourself to make sure you get things done, you also have to be able to tell yourself to take a step back if you need to, and you have to be able to see those signs when it's getting too much, because you run the risk of burning yourself out and hitting that plateau before you see it coming. So you really have to be self-aware all the time to kind of tell yourself, hey, you're pushing it too hard, or you're doing too much, you need to slow down. Like, and even within like just writing the story, if it's not working and you keep trying to force it, it's only going to get worse. So
Yeah.
it's that thing of, yeah, like you really have to like tell yourself, hold on, why is it not working? What are you trying to force in there that isn't working? Go back a couple steps. Let's see, where, because like if you don't deal with it at the time that you notice it, you're gonna be, you know, 6 weeks down the line and looking back like, oh shit, like I've made a mistake. So it's really just like you have to be really self aware of what you're doing, and also being like aware of your own limitations. Because like if you're telling yourself, yes, I have to do this marketing, I have to do you know um, these cover designs, look for these cover designs, I have to write a blurb and do all this stuff, and you don't think about how much it is um, as you're going through the steps. So you're really not giving yourself the amount of time you need sometimes. Or you know on the other side of that is you're looking at it all as this big picture, so it seems like a whole lot instead of just taking it step by step. So it's really just like a lot of self-awareness and like paying attention to what you're doing, and like how long you're taking to do it, or how long you're going to need personally, because it's not going to be the same for everybody, right? So
Yeah, I 100% endorse that. I wish I knew before I went in that the payoff for being able to set my own deadlines and work the way I want to work, so that I can like have my job like be, I guess, top priority, would mean that it is a lot of work. There are many hats to wear, and you should give yourself grace. But one thing that I also wish I, well, I'm not even sure if I wish I'd known, or I wish someone would tell me, or I guess one thing that I wish I'd been able to see before, was just how rewarding it is. I think that when I first published, it was more along the lines of, I'm writing all of these things. Let me just get them out there into the world. And to be honest, I didn't expect people to read. I didn't expect to reach an audience. And so if Rilzy from 2016 knew that right now, like my work would find their homes. Like it's not for everyone. Like some people are probably like, oh yes, no, please, no, no, not for me. But my work will find the homes that it was meant to find, and how rewarding it is for all of my little imaginary friends who live in my head, um, to have an outlet. because that is really that's priceless.
Definitely, definitely.
So I'm seeing naturally asking if I would ever go the hybrid route. Um, if I ever had the opportunity to do this full time, then probably. I try and see. But for now, as it stands, like all of my concerns, they still exist. I need to be able to tell my editor, and I think Kai's somewhere in this chat. Um, Hi, about that deadline. I said I could get this book to you by now, but apparently this is not going to happen. I need that flexibility for now. But I feel as if I ever got to a stage where I thought I could make them both work, I don't know. Maybe I'd try, but I know one thing. I don't think I'd ever give up self-publishing. Um, no, it stuck with me.
Yeah, I'd say the same too. Like, would I try it? Traditionally publishing one day, probably, but it would be a very delicate situation as far as where I would want to go with it and who I would be working with. Um, because I'm very passionate about how my books are portrayed, and a lot of me is put into those books, which is a big part of why self-publishing worked for me, because I didn't have to worry about you know people asking me questions about the identities that I put in my books. Are they relevant? Are they necessary? Like, I don't have to answer to anybody in regards to that. So it would be a very delicate situation. Like, even just signing this deal to turn Drag Me Up and Keep Me Close in the audiobooks, it was a very delicate conversation about having black narrators, having narrators of color, and being able to I had to put it in my contract, like, I get to have a say on who narrates my stories, because I'm not in the business of saying, oh yeah, that's okay, as long as it's my book, so go ahead, do whatever you want. Like, I can't do that. So it would be a very delicate determination on where I would go with it and how much control I would have over it, so I can still keep to who I am and my brand. So as long as I don't jeopardize that, yeah, I'd try it. But it would just be like, it wouldn't be something I go into, like, you know just out of the blue. Like, it'd have to be very tailored to me. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm like in like high maintenance or anything, but it would just be like, I would want that respect given to me by whoever I decided to work with. So, and if they can't give me that, then it's not worth it to me to jeopardize that, and I would just continue to self publish.
Yeah, I think, and when I think of hybrid, I'm not even thinking 50-50. I'm thinking 90-10, with 90 being in favor of self-publishing. Like, I know, like, there's this perception in certain corners of the literary world that self-published people are just persons who tried to traditionally publish and they didn't make it. I never queried because, as I said before, it was not an option in my mind. I needed to self publish. But I think at this stage, once you are able to somehow balance output of books and your marketing and handling your mailing list, which I still have no idea how to manage my mailing list. But once you learn to do all of those aspects and you're wearing all of the hats and you're wearing them well, it is probably the more fulfilling way to author. I'm not sure I'm making that a verb. Of being an author. There we go. Because it has a lot to do with what Aram is saying. Like, we are accustomed now to knowing that this is what's important to me. This is what I want to say with my books. And the only persons that you're no, the only person, not persons, the only person that you're fighting with to make sure that you achieve the goals that you set in the way that fits your conscience is yourself. And so then it becomes a really different scenario when you're putting more players into the game. But for me, hybrid is a 90/10. I can't see a world where I was not self-publishing most of my books.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, because it would be a very specific project too. Like I would have a specific traditionally published project if I did that. It would be specifically for that purpose. Um, Whereas like the books, like most of my books would still be self published. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny. So earlier this year, I was speaking to my best friend and I was telling them that I had this idea and I was thinking about querying Harley Quinn. More nostalgia. So these are the books that I grew up reading, but for nostalgia's sake. And I went ahead and I did my whole plotting exercise, which is basically what would happen if XYZ. And then, so I was speaking to them maybe 2 or 3 days later, and they said to me, "So, how, like, were you on this Harlequin thing?" And I said to them, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yes, I plotted it, and I'm writing it, and I'm probably going to self-publish it next year." And they said, um, "I'm confused." I went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, definitely going to self-publish that." So they said to me, "You definitely know where your heart lies, so maybe you should just stick to it."
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's important. That's important when this is a career. So, um,
Okay, so I'm seeing Natalie asking a question about the main tip. I think Aram touched on it actually earlier about self awareness. You got to be really self aware. Yeah, and not just with regards to how to work, how to do the work, how to get your books to publication, but then also you have to be very self aware of your content, even, and being very self aware enough to distinguish criticisms that you should take on and use to change your writing with regards to problematic things or those sorts of things, as opposed to the criticism that you go, okay, well, my book was not for you, and so we'll keep it moving. And I think the only way you can distinguish whether or not there's something that you really need to change, because it may be harmful or hurtful or whatnot, is self awareness.
Yeah, I think like definitely in that aspect is not taking everything at face value or like having knee jerk reactions to those things, but actually kind of interrogating those, not the people specifically that give you that criticism, but the criticism itself. Like, is this, a personal thing for them? Is it like a personal thing for me? And like, do your research. Like, that's a big thing too, is do your research. But in addition to that, as far as like a main tip on top of the self awareness, um, it would probably be like trust in the community and build your community from the outset. So like other writers, readers, book bloggers, reviewers. These people are your lifeline. Like I mean, they're obviously your readers, the reader base, so they make or break you. But they also your support. Like these are the people that you're going to look to when things get hard. Other writers can give you, the information you need, and it's very important to build a support system that you can trust, because again, the steps for every project are going to change, especially in self-publishing. There's new software, new platforms every day. Like things develop so fast in this industry. So and there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of people who will tell you, hey, give me $6 grand and I can make your book a bestseller. And that's just not true. Like there's going to be a lot of people trying to sell you a dream, and you can't be willing to immediately throw your money at it. Um, so it's a lot of like trust in the community, the people who have been there, the people who have been doing it, but also understand that their the way they do things isn't going to work for you. Um, it's not going to be a one size fits all thing. Self publishing is very much like it's a personal journey. So you have to really pick your steps and do what's best for you. Don't compare yourself to other authors, especially self-published authors. Some people write, 8, 9 books a year. Other people put out two. Nothing's wrong with either of those things. You have to build your career that fits you, and that's the whole point of self-publishing, is to have that control. So like don't put yourself down or compare yourself to other people, because that's the quickest way to burn yourself out and make yourself feel like, I don't want to do this, or to have to step away quicker. So it's just a thing of like, yeah, being aware of what you can do and your limitations and being respectful of that. Um, and then just like asking questions, like, again, we're here to help. A lot of us are on Twitter constantly trying to give information, support, whatever. Like, we're there. My DMs are open. I've said it before, especially for marginalized authors, who feel like they don't have another way to do it. And then lastly, too, you're going to hear a lot, that self-publishing are people who couldn't make it in traditional publishing, or that it's a lesser thing than traditional publishing. It's not true. Don't let people tell you that or convince you that you're not worthy of readers because you self-published. It's a journey. It's a different type of journey. It's an option. You can do both. You can do one or the other, and you're still going to be a writer. You're still going to be an author. So definitely don't listen to specific criticism about this blanket statement about self-pub authors. You're valid, and it's not something to be ashamed of that you're self-published. If anything, you should be really proud, because it's hard. Like, this is hard. We don't have people to delegate to. We don't have, people that, take care of everything while we look the other way and go do something else. Like, we have to be part of the process at all steps. So understand that what you're doing is you're taking the harder road, and if you can do that, then nobody can tell you anything. Like, you're an author. So yeah.
Yeah, Arm definitely took the words out of my mouth because I'd want you to jump back in at the end, to say just that, um, if you're a self-published author, you're just as valid as those who are traditionally published. You will write a book that someone will pick up on a day that's a bad day and they want to comfort read. You will write a book that someone will be anxious to show their friends. You take part in the magic, which is, reading, which is you get to live so many different lives and experience so many different things because of someone else, someone yours, because of your imagination and because you dared to start this journey. So don't let those awesome things get into your head because it's simply, as Aaron said, not true.
And like, all your books aren't going to be for everybody. That's the truth about traditional publishing, self-publishing. Every book out there, somebody hated it, and then there were other people who loved it. So it's always going to be, you're always going to have critics. You're always going to have people who didn't like it, or it wasn't for them, or had this, one, two, three issues with it. But then you're going to have other people that absolutely loved it, will read it again, and will buy your books for the rest of the time that you're publishing. So it's just a matter of like, you have to look at the good things, but there's obviously going to be, you know, lower, there's going to be lows and highs that come together. But you have to celebrate your wins and not think too hard about the people who didn't like your books.
Yeah, now that you said that, I so a few days ago I stumbled across an Instagram post from, like a writing account, and just as Aaron said, like, it's art, and your art isn't for everyone. And they actually had this quote. I'm going to share it real quick because I think it's really important. They said, artists are not like athletes. We cannot win gold. We cannot beat other creatives. We cannot come first. Sport is objective, or craft is subjective. Creating to be the best is a waste of energy. Instead, create to connect to the people who need you because they're out there. Create in your own way because there's no right way. Take the pressure off and focus on your unique blend of magic. And I think that that's very, very important for you to realize, or people to realize, once they get into the business of creating. There's someone out there who needs your book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm still here. I think I'm like my connection is super bad. So I'm gonna turn my camera off and we can finish with Andrea's question.
Okay.
Um, what do you think the future of self publishing will look like?
You want to go? You want me to go first?
Um, you go.
I think it's going to be great. I think more and more people are realizing that it is it's an important where it's a great way to go about having control of your art and having creative control and deciding even like the kind of things that should be published. Because what I've seen a lot on Twitter is that self-published authors, we're filling a gap that you're not getting with traditionally published works, because for whatever reasons they're doing their mathematical calculations and their algebra and all of that, and they're deciding, well, this won't sell. But we are realizing that there is a market out there. There are people who want to read the things that may not make it to the big fives, or that people are too scared to see what the audience could be. But I do think that in the future, more people will be brave enough to self publish. They will stop listening to the little naysayers about like whether or not it's valid. And as more people enter into this space, there will be more resources and it will keep getting better and better and better. Because self publishing, as it stands right now, does not look the way it did 5 years ago or 6 years ago. A lot of the things that we have now that makes life a little bit easier for us did not exist for the persons who started out when it was like bare bones. And I think that that can only continue happening as we go on.
I would say the same thing. My goal is to take over the world. So more self published authors, um, which would mean more marginalized stories, more stories that aren't traditionally picked up in publishing. Um, a lot more freedom for people to have like that. You know, you wanted to write your whole life, or you had this dream that you wanted to write, or there's this story you really want to tell, and you're going to be able to do that on your own time and put it into the market without really stressing over who's going to read it. Somebody's going to read it, and like Rilzy said, that people are going to be braver about putting themselves out there and publishing a book. And I'm hoping that with that and with more resources and more focus coming into self-publishing, that we kind of change the industry as a whole, so that um, this process can become more streamlined, but still everybody gets to keep the benefits we have right now. So everybody gets to keep the creative control, like the timing, the self pace, that we're able to keep that and keep moving forward and having more works put out via self publishing, so that we can show people, hey, there is a market for this. There is a market for these stories. There are people that want to read these books, and traditional publishing has been you know, we've been screaming to the void for so long, and now we have a way to put our work out there, and we're going to do it. So you can either get with the program or get lost, you know. So I'm hoping that it really does change the face of what we know as publishing and what we see as marketable content.
I can't decide.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much for all of your words. Um, I know I keep breaking up, so I'm speaking like as slowly as I possibly can. Um, uh, but thank you, Rilzy and Aram, for these wonderful final panel. In about 20 minutes, I'll be going live on our official, quote unquote, official Instagram account. Um, 5:15 ET. I think that's the time. To say like a final thank you and to let you know what's to come. I wanted to do it here, but since my audio is breaking up, I don't think it would be a smart choice. So I'll send account on the Instagram Live. And thank you, Rilsey and Arem. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for your wonderful, wonderful questions. Don't forget to check out the description below so that you can get to know Rilsey and Arem better on their social media and so that you can purchase their books. Thank you so much for joining the virtual Indie Book Fest. I hope you had fun, and we will see you next year, hopefully. Bye.
Bye.